you very much for always help us, support us to accept our request to become our visiting professor here with a very interesting topic, how to publish our work in the international index journal. We know Prof. Usman have many works that published international journal and as well as in the conference. The honorable of all our faculty member in public health department, as well as from our guest from Lampung Mangkurat, University of Lampung, Pak Dian Rosati, welcome to UNES virtually, but maybe sometime we can meet in directly in Semarang. Prof. Usman, I also hope that we can meet in the reality, in real life, not just virtual like we done before. All our students in public health department or maybe another department, I think we have now around 120 participants here. Thank you for joining this class. I think we will get many fruitful advantage from this discussion. Prof. Usman will share his experience and as well as how to publish our works. We know that a student is mandatory to publish your work, like Pak Lukman said, in the international journal or in national journal. So I think enjoying this discussion, enjoying this class, and I hope we can get benefit from this discussion. Thank you once again, Prof. Usman. Our warm regard from our dear Prof. Tanjo. She is not she cannot join this directly, but she always thanks to Prof. Usman that always support us in this academic activities, to many activities, and we thanks again. I also maybe cannot join until the finish of this class because there is another meeting after that, and I will ask Mr. Lukman about the resume. I myself always interested in this topic and always want to improve our ability, our competency in academic writing. Thank you very much, Prof. Usman and all audience. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you, Dr. Azam, for the welcoming speech. We let you to continue agenda if there is any another agenda. Thank you, Professor Azam. We go to the main session. Before we get started, let me to share the rules for the participant. First is please turn on your camera and turn off your microphone, and please change your display for the Zoom with the format name_institution, and you can ask the question after Professor Usman deliver the presentation by chat menu, or you can ask by raising your hand. And in the end of virtual lecture, it will be informed the link of certificate issuance. So do not leave the Zoom, and the link is active for only 60 minutes after the virtual lecture is over. And also I'll let me to read the curriculum vitae of Professor Usman. He is from College of Public Health, Taipei Medical University, Taiwan. And for his educational background, for the PhD from Graduate Institute of Biomedical Informatics, Taiwan, the MBA from Taipei, Taiwan, and the PharmD from Faculty of Pharmacy, Karachi, Pakistan. And for his professional affiliation and recognition are from Australasian Institute of Digital Health, International Health Literacy Association, Royal Society of Public Health, and Australasian College of Health Services and Management. And for the publication, he wrote the many more article and publication talk about artificial intelligence, mobile application, CDM, and global burden of disease history. Without further ado, we would like to invite Professor Usman to share the material for us. The screen is yours. Professor Usman? Oh, something trouble happened. We have to wait him go back again in the Zoom. Okay, we are still waiting him. Okay, for the student, please open the camera and make sure your microphone is on, and in the time of question and answer session, you can ask the question to Professor Usman.
Sorry, Dr. Lukman, I think there was some problem at my side. I'm just trying to share the screen.
Okay.
Yeah. Can you see now?
Okay, yeah, we can see.
Okay, great. First of all, assalamu alaikum to everyone, and I would like to thank you, Dr. Azam and Dr. Lukman, and also other participants, and Dr. Dina as well, and also for her congratulations to her final successful defense too. And it's really my great pleasure to provide the lecture and having this opportunity to come and being visiting lecture and share my experience and knowledge in the healthcare expertise. And also I would like to apologize for some little inconvenience what happened in the beginning for sharing the screen. So I have to log out and log in again. So today we are going to talk about how to publish research papers in index journals. And research papers, as already mentioned by Dr. Azam and Dr. Lukman, that it is very important nowadays going forward that every person, every student who is doing any kind of research should publish their research into any international journals. And I thank you again, Dr. Lukman, for my brief introduction. So I am currently associate professor with the Global Health and Department in College of Public Health at TMU as a visiting adjunct. And also I'm working with the International Center for Health Information Technology on the health informatics, or you can call artificial intelligence in medicine related or mobile health related projects. And also fellow of the Australian College of Digital Health and Australian Health Services and Management College. And I also carry some legacy of journal experience with the managing international journals. And I was the associate editor for ISQA journal, which is called International Journal for Quality in Healthcare from Oxford University Press. and also with the computer method and program in biomedicine and BMJ Healthcare and Informatics Journal. And now I'm co-editor-in-chief for the computer method and program in biomedicine update journal from elsewhere. While I was part of the journals, gave me a great pleasure to understand and to encourage the people from different regions for publications, because we saw that there is some bias in the way of publication, that where some people, they really from particular regions, they don't get an opportunity to publish into the international journals. And the reason is because sometimes the robustness of the methodology and the, sometimes the kind of the guidance they require, how they can be able to refine their papers into that, and also some kind of course, the methodology and the data as well involved. So this is a CMPB update journal, which I joined in 2020, and this journal is new from elsewhere. It's a sister journal from one journal which I'm part of already. The name is almost similar, which is called Computer Method and Program in Biomedicine. So this is the new journal we added update, because the sister journals so have the same scope as the previous one. But this journal is fully open access. However, if we invited any paper, so we can able to waive that, and also the fees is also 50%. But we still encourage, it depends, if we like the paper, we can ask for the waiver for that particular papers as well. So you encourage to publish in that. So far we have 50+ papers published already, and we have special issues already going on. 3 special issues are going on at this stage. Today we are going to talk about how we can publish into the international journals. So my presentation will be divided into 5 sections. Just to make it very clear for you guys to understand better that why and how you can prepare your paper, and when you prepare your paper, how you can able to find the suitable journal for your paper, and also what things you should be checking before you submit to the journal, because this is also important, and how usually journal process their papers, and also why and how promotion of your paper is important. So why and how to prepare your manuscript. First of all, as you know, you might be aware that there are different kind of scientific writings. Some are, we call thesis, dissertations. There are research papers, and then within the research papers, there are different types of papers. For example, like review articles, there are short communications, letter to editor, commentary. There are sometimes the writing for the research funding, and sometimes there are patents, and also the thesis, of course, as a part of the graduation. So what is exactly the scientific paper? Scientific paper is actually written or published report which describe the original results, original research results. And this paper, actually the scientific draft, should be written in a particular way, in a certain way, and it should be published also in a certain way too. Because if there is a research paper, you cannot publish into newspaper. The research finding, nobody will be able to understand in the, the newspaper. So that's why people go to the journals to find their papers. And also meet the test of validation publication. You have to understand that you put all the information, not just the results, but also have the method and other right things included in the paper. And of course, why we call the right place to publish, because then you need to understand your audience, that who is going to read your paper, right? If you are working something related to public health, then you want to publish paper into public health journal. If you are doing something related to medicine, then you want to publish paper into the medicine journal, right? If you're doing something related to agriculture, then you have to publish something related to the agriculture journal, right? So it's different domains and different specialties for that within. So when you start writing, you always think why I should be writing, why I have to write. So always something comes in your mind. So if something comes in your mind, you can say that have some, maybe, you want to share something which is very important. This is something that's why you want to write. And also you want to write because you feel like, oh, you want to advance yourself professionally. Means if you write, then people will know that, oh, you have the capacity to write and you publish. And also, of course, if you're working in academics or in research, you want to apply for the research grants. And also you write because you want people to learn from your research findings and research that they want to educate other people. And also because when you publish, your institution will get affiliation and contribution as well, right? And also you're contributing to your field as well. And also you are trying to improve the practice on care, because if you find and doing some research, then people will learn a lesson from that particular thing. And of course, when you publish, then you also feel personally satisfied that, this is when you publish, then you feel like, oh, this is very important. And now people will acknowledge, and you feel like, oh, you contributed to that particular field. And why we cannot usually write, why we always have problem. First of all, the problem is the lack of time, because we are so much busy sometime in other things. So we feel like, oh, writing, it's a kind of difficult for us. Second thing is we don't know how to write, how to start with. And third thing could be, the unfamiliarity with the process. We don't know what we should be starting. Either we should start with the introduction, either we should start with the results, method section, what and where we should be starting. And also, if somebody has already written a paper, they also have a bad experience like rejection and criticism as well. So they feel like, oh, there's a rejection and criticism. That's why also a problem. So what you have to do is you have to give a try. So you have to plan the strategy. So it's not really complicated. And, everyone, of course, have some problem and they get rejected. So, but you always have to be very persistent and try again and again. Even, like myself, I'm already, in a field, in a professor, but my paper also got rejected from the journals too. So it doesn't mean that I stop publishing or I stop writing, because it's not like that. It's the same thing, like not everybody can get into the same journal. It's the same thing. So sometimes some papers they have to reject because of the space. They don't have the capacity to accept everything. So they only pick the high quality papers, and the other papers they automatically have to reject. No matter your paper is very good, but maybe if at that time the papers they were getting is not the enough high priority compared to what they were having. So whenever you start, you have to see, the question to answer before you start writing. What are the 4 questions you have to see? Like why you want to publish your work, right? Is it new and interesting? Is it a current hot topic? For example, like last 2 years, the COVID is a very hot topic. So everybody wants to do something related to COVID, right? So that is why the people were getting a lot of attention and COVID related papers. The third is, are you trying to provide a solution for any difficult problem, or just, creating another problems, or just talking about the problems? Because people like to have the solution for the problem. So if you have a solution for the problems, that is an important thing. And also, are you ready to publish at this point? Because means, are you just a planning, or you already have something in your hands? For example, some data study results already. If all the answers are yes, then start preparing your manuscript. So a scientific article must answer the following basic questions. For example, what is the problem you want to address, right? So you have to pick a very specific problem, and which you can see that, you can able to resolve, or you can able to answer. Keep in mind that don't pick so many problems at the same time. Just pick one simple problem and then try to focus on that problem. And then you have to think why it is important. How did your study, the problem, like how you are going to use the methods, what are the results, and what are the implications of your results. For example, if you find some results, then what's next? Are you going to recommend some policy for that? Are you going to suggest something for the stakeholders? So what is the results, right? What's the next thing? And also, what do you recommend as further for other studies? For example, if you have done some study in Indonesia in some region, maybe you don't have that particular kind of resources, so you will suggest other people, or you might be doing the same study in other country. You need to focus on these things as a barrier or challenges. So 4 questions of the manuscript writing is, first of all, so in the paper, you always have seen that there are 4 sections. Introduction is main, which means like what is exactly you are going to do, and what you did is the methods, and how did you find is results, and what does that means is discussion. So when you're trying to make your paper, you have to follow these steps like introduction, method, results, and discussion properly. And you have to see, like, you're trying to tell a story. So you have the beginning, middle part, and end. So you have introduction, body, and conclusion. So your paper should be in a way that it should be easy to read and easy to understand way, not very complicated, because you have to see that, the people who are reading next is not maybe particular expert within particular subject. The writing style is also very important, because an article should be understand easily by readers. Use very plain language. Don't use jargons or cliché. Always be precise and be active, and short sentences, not very long, and also short words as well. And always try to use plural. When you do a research work, imagine this cannot be only one person work. It's a teamwork, right? So always use we, we did this, we did that, and all this together like that. Not saying like I did that, and this is things. So it makes like a teamwork. And also the gender should be neutral as well. And always keep in mind that you are writing something for international readers, not just focusing on the particular region people. And always try to explain the abbreviations if you're using, and cross out as many does as possible. Don't use too many does as well in the paper. So there are three C's, which are very important. Good writing process requires these three. One is the clarity, conciseness, and correctness, which is accuracy. So the key is to be as brief, as specific as possible without omitting any essential information or details. For example, you have to be very specific and then try to put all the important information, but don't make it very lengthy paper, because the paper also have a specific word limitation as well. Always keep in mind your enemies. For example, you have a good writing, traps. For example, if you are doing a repetition, the same thing you're writing again and again in the same, which makes feel people annoying because they are reading the same thing, they will lose the interest from the paper. Another thing is the redundancy, means you are not very clear what you want to say. And then ambiguity, if you're not clear about something you're trying to say, this is also not good. And also sometimes you exaggerate some situations, like saying, oh, this is the ultimate solution for this. No, because you never know, maybe someone has done something else too. So you can say this is the best solution so far we know, but maybe there could be some other possibilities as well. So there are some common things which the editors feel annoyed. So every research paper have these particular sections. So you can see there's a title, which is clearly describes the content. The title is very important, and also the authors, because you need to ensure that whoever contribute to your paper writing is there. Their names are correct, their spellings are correct, their affiliation is correct. And the abstract, always try to have an abstract of 150 to 250 words as per the journal requirements. Keywords are very important because the people search papers using the keywords. And every paper index in the database like PubMed, they use the keywords. And then there's an introduction where you need to explain the problem, method, how the data were collected, results, that, and a discussion section. You have to discuss compared to the other studies published, that how your studies are supporting by the literature published. And also acknowledgement, if you have any funding or someone help you in the research, editing and stuff. And references, of course, try to ensure that the references you are referring in your study is accurate. And also appendices, if you have some supplementary information like the material or data, then you can add that into along with your paper. So now we will go one by one to the component. For example, the title. Why the title is the backbone of the article? Because most of times when the paper comes to editor will look into the title and abstract. So if the title is not really crispy and they feel like, oh, it's a very lengthy, it's not very clear, then most of the time they don't want to spend time to the other parts as well, because they don't have enough time. They are getting a lot of papers every day. So you need to make sure that your title is as good as you can make it, and as fewest words you have to use. So what you should be doing is to convey main findings of the research, be specific, concise, and complete, and attract readers. What you shouldn't do is Don't use the abbreviations in the title because we don't know what the meaning of the abbreviations, and neither the editors might be knowing. Don't use ambiguous terms, not unnecessary detail, and focus on the content only, not like that. So you have to make a very crispy title. So the example is, for example, this is one of the title, and you can see here, it's a very lengthy title. And when someone is reading this title, it seems like a one paragraph whole. What you have to do is, you have to make it a little bit more brief, like, in a one sentence or 1.5 sentence maximum. Then abstract. The quality of the abstract will strongly influence the editor decision, because the title, as mentioned, is a backbone. Then of course the abstract is another thing, because the editor doesn't have time to go through the whole paper of 5,000 words. So what your good abstract should be, precise and honest. It should be crisp, concise, and accurate. If somebody reads your abstract and able to understand the whole study, it should be written in that particular way. And you shouldn't use any technical jargons. It should be brief and specific, and you should not cite any references within the abstract. It's not really a good practice either. So you need to use your abstract. Seems like you're trying to sell your study. So the abstract also need to be structured. And as I mentioned in the beginning, like, it should be 150, 250 words. Some journal will ask you only 100 words. Some journal will ask you 300 words. So it depends on the journal guidelines as well. I always suggest to keep your abstract into 150, 200 words. The reason is because then if you don't get in one journal, then you can able to submit to another journal without putting much effort to rewrite the whole abstracts from scratch. The abstract should contain purpose, reasons, aims of paper, design, methodology, and it should be, like what was done, finding results, and also inclusion exclusion criteria, and also the practical implications of your study, any social implications, or what is the value, and what is the conclusion. So you have to conclude your study in one sentence. So how you're going to conclude, how your study is going to have an impact overall. Keywords also plays an important role because it helps to index properly in the journals. And always every research paper requires at least 5 to 10 keywords, and keywords should be very specific to your research, and avoid uncommon abbreviations and general terms, because you need to understand that the database is like a library and they have specific terms already defined. So if you use your own terms, then it will not match, and then your paper won't get the good indexing inside the database too. So you always try to use the mesh terms. Mesh terms are from the PubMed already. So for example, if you're using a term cancer, you need to find what are the alternate terms for that, the mesh terms. For example, maybe cancer is oncology, or some other carcinogenic, something like that. So introduction. In introduction section, provide the necessary background information to put your work into context. It should be clear from the introduction and why the current work was performed. You need to have the aims and significance, and what was done before, and what was done in your research, and what was achieved in brief terms too. So this is introduction. Sometimes people ask that, how we can able to put the limited references in the introduction. So you have to try your best, because if there are 1,000 papers published in that particular topic, does not mean that you can cite all the 1,000 papers. You have to only pick the very, very relevant, highly relevant papers to your topic, and then cite those ones. And you, of course, because the journal also have the limitation for the references, so you cannot cite 1,000. Maybe the journal will ask you maximum references 30 or 40, something like that. So what you should do in the introduction is consult and guide with the author's word limit, which journal you're trying to submit. Set the scene, like a story as mentioned in the beginning, outline the problem and hypothesis, ensure that the literature cited is balanced, up-to-date, and relevant. Define any non-standard abbreviations or jargons if you are using. And what you shouldn't do is don't write too much introduction. Don't cite disappropriate your own work. Sometimes people try to cite their own papers in the same introduction, which is not a good thing too. So try to balance. Of course, you are the expert of your field as well. You also have done the similar research, but does not mean that you cite all your papers in the introduction as well. So you can cite some, but it has to be balanced. And don't describe the method and result and conclusion in the introduction section. And don't use the over terms like novel or for the first time, because maybe someone has done already some things. The next part is called methods. Method components is a standard sequence of methods. It's you also have to have the study design properly, what kind of study design you have used for this particular patient description, if you are having any samples, definitions, if there are any specific, for example, what is the endpoints, primary or secondary, what kind of statistic method you have used, whether you have got the IRB approval consent form. If you're having the participants, have you get the consent from the participants as well? And you have to make your method seems like, it's a reproducible. So if somebody wants to do the similar study, they can able to do that. But don't make it very simple as well. Means that, you have to keep it a little bit more refined. The main findings of the research is also very important, because you have to describe the participant details, which is what we usually call socio-demographic characteristics. Keep in mind, if you are already showing the table of the results, then don't write in the writing description results, because don't repeat the same thing which you are already showing in the table form. So if you are not showing something in the table form, then you can able to put in the descriptive form. And primary outcomes or any secondary outcomes, use table or figures. Try to use more table and figures for the results instead of writing too much details in description form. And show the statistic results more. What is significant, what is non-significant. Compare like with like. What you shouldn't do is don't interpret. Don't interpret means like don't try to explain that why this is not significant, why this is significant, because that is the next part of the discussion. Don't duplicate the data among table figures in the text, as I mentioned already. If you already show the table results, then don't duplicate that too. Then comes to the discussion. In the discussion, you have to describe how the results relate to the hypothesis, how the findings relate to those, the other studies published on this particular topic, and also what are the implications of that particular study, and how you can try to interpret those results and findings. Also, it is very important to mention the limitation of the study and future research directions as well, and avoid making grand statements, and also, for example, like this is a novel study, this can do stuff like that. Just try to be polite and say that, oh, this is the best study according to our knowledge and stuff. So in the conclusion as well, put your study into context and identify key findings and application, and describe how it represents an advance in the field, and suggest the future experiments. And what you should be avoiding is don't repeat the things again. The conclusion should be very brief, concise, and it should be able to provide a good information. And don't over speculate the results as well, and don't overemphasize as well on the study. As I mentioned, acknowledgement is very important as well. So acknowledgement is anyone who helped you in the study, including in writing. Maybe, sometimes you need help from people to write to, some part of the paper. Sometimes you need help for editing the paper. Sometimes you need some critical comments from them. Sometimes you need some technical help, for example, some resources. So it's good to acknowledge them. Or if you have any funding to do some research, so you can acknowledge them in the, below that this is a paper you got the funding for stuff. For references, always try to use the current literature, and always try to cite them accurate. Always have the correct style in the paper. Always try to use a software like EndNote or Mendeley or whichever convenient to you, but the software will help you to automatically update the references. If you do the manual, then there are more chances of having the problem. What you should be avoiding is personal communication. For example, if somebody say that, oh, I have done this study, but they don't have the published link, then you cannot just trust. So always, if somebody is still doing experiment in the lab, you cannot just say that, oh, this is what somebody is doing, because it's nothing happened yet. He's just doing or she's just doing. So what you have to do is only rely on the literature which is published. So always try to use the published literature in the paper. And also try to avoid citing the local literature, for example, in a local language, because international readers won't understand the local literature unless it is very specific and you feel like, oh, it is very important, you cannot leave it out. So at least then you can translate the title into English and then cite. And also try to avoid excessive self-citation. Self-citation means if you publish your own papers and don't cite your own papers in the same too. So this is also very important. So just keep in mind that this is not. Supplementary material is also very important, because as I mentioned, that if you have some excessive information, some data to share extra, then you can submit along with the paper, because the paper have a certain limit to put the number of words inside. For example, one paper have only limit for 3 tables, 2 figures, 5 maybe tables. If you have like total is 5, like 3 tables or 2 figures, something like that, and maybe maximum 5,000 words. If you have more information to add, then put that in a supplementary file as an additional and submit, because additional supplementary file editors don't mind, because it doesn't show in the main paper. It will be just an additional file, so they will just bring you to the online only. Table or figure, you need to explain very clearly their titles. It should be very clear. The numbers and the figures should be very clear too, because it should be in a high resolution. So when they convert into the different format, it should be automatically standalone. If somebody is reading your table, they can able to read the table title and they can understand what is in the table. So you need to have a good title for figure and good title for the tables as well. So table and figure always should be neat and clean, in high resolution, simple, and no error. If there's any error, please indicate specifically in that too. In the citing writing, ethics is very important too. So whatever you write, you should be always factual. If your study findings are not significant, please indicate not significant. If it is significant, then clear significant. Don't, if you say significant to non-significant, then it will not be the factual based, and then people will feel it's not the good research which can help to give them some kind of help in the decision making. And always be honorable, be legal, truthful, and objective and accurate. So don't falsify the data, don't fabricate the information, and don't plagiarize as well. So there are some other issues for ethics as well. For example, authorship issues. Sometimes people, if they work in a team, then they need to discuss among them who will be the first author, who will be the second, third corresponding author too. So it depends on the contribution of the team, if they are doing some projects. So you have to discuss this among your team members as well. And then before submitting the paper, you need to make this decision clearly. If you submit a paper without including the team member who contributed, and you submit to the journal, and if the team member claim later on, then you have to answer to the editor, or could be a legal issue for them. So always be truthful in that too. And acknowledge past and present contributors as well. If you are doing a clinical trial, register clinical trial online. If you're having any funding and grants for the research, then always try to acknowledge them, the research and funding. And don't, if you are already use one data for one paper, don't try to use the same data for another paper. So, that will be duplication. So what is plagiarism? It's a practice of taking someone else's work or ideas and passing them off as one-off. So what you have to do is don't take someone's work. If you have, you want to refer, just quote their work exactly, or do the proper citation of their work. Otherwise, what will happen is your paper will be getting rejected. And if you claim, then you could have the academic charges as well, or sometimes the termination of employment as well. So it's a really serious issue. What is conflict of interest? Conflict of interest is actually, when someone has any sometimes visible or invisible attributes to readers, and they don't really rectify among each other. So what you should be doing is, if you want to ignore, you cannot actually ignore, because something will pop up somewhere. So what you should be doing is, you cannot avoid it. What you should do is try to resolve among each other first and then submit to the journal. So now we will move to the section 2, that how to find a suitable journal for your paper. Once you write all these sections of the paper, like you know how to write the title, what is the abstract, what is introduction, results, your discussion, acknowledgement, references, and supplementary material. Because it is also very important that if your maybe study is very good, but you don't know where to submit, which is a good journal. So when you are going to select your journals, what you should do is you have to think that who is your audience, journal audience, and what is the impact factor of the journal, what is the average publication time of that particular journal, because you also don't want to just submit and wait forever, because you also feel like you want to publish timely. And you also have to see that if this journal is open access, and also one thing you have to keep in mind is that don't submit the same paper to multiple journals, because this is not a good practice. The journal will find out and it's a real problem. So what you have to do is to submit to one journal and wait for the decision. Sometimes people, what they try to do is they try to submit to multiple journals, and they think that, oh, maybe one journal will process and then they will publish timely. No, this is not a good practice. So you have to wait for one journal to decide and then move on to the next one. So what is open access journals? Open access journals are the journals which publish without any financial or technical barriers, and the content is available on the internet, indexed properly on the different repositories, and also the most of cases the copyright is owned by the author, not the publishers. And some open access journals are subsidized by academic or government institutions as well, means you can have the waiver for that too. So, and what are the high impact factor journals? Impact factor journals, they have the frequency of more citations, means more people read their paper and more citations they will get. So high impact factor journals are the ones which have high frequency of citations by others. And it's superficial, but internationally accepted the quality as well. So if you want to find a good journal, people usually go and see that who has a more high citation for that particular journal too. So why it is important to publish in a high impact factor journal? Why people think that it's important to publish in a high impact factor journal? And the reason is because you want to have a greater visibility of your research, because the high impact factor means more people read that particular journal. And of course, you can increase the citation of your own work as well, and greater recognition among your peers, because people will say, oh, you publish in a very high impact factor journal. And sometimes this associated benefits, for example, like you can get promotion and some allowances, and if you publish in a good impact factor journal, extra credit as well. So what do journal editors and reviewers usually do? They think about, is your manuscript have sufficient novelty? Is your manuscript of broad enough interest? If both are balanced, then they will process it. Journals do want quality. So what comes under that is they want to think about if it's original, if it's contributing to the field, and is it well-defined study, good readability for that, and is meeting the ethical standards. What they don't want is the duplications. They don't like, if it's not reporting scientific interest, work out of date, or studies with insufficient data, or no conforms with the journal requirements. Because sometimes people don't follow the journal guidelines and just submit. No matter how good is their study, if they don't follow the journal guidelines as a presentation, then also journal don't feel like processing their paper. So if you follow all these things, so what gets you to acceptance? For example, you pay attention to the details, you check and double check the work, you consider the reviews, your language is okay, and your presentation is important. You took time to make the revision, and you acknowledge these points help you and your paper is new, original, and previously unpublished, and critically evaluate your own manuscript, and ethical rules must be obeyed as well. So if all these points are followed, then it leads you towards acceptance, right? And then after that, what things to check before submission? Before submission, the authors have responsibility to prepare manuscript properly. First of all, they need to think that it's new and original. Manuscript they have checked is like all authors have listed properly, their name spellings are correct, their affiliations are correct, they already obtained the copyright permission if they are using any figures or tables, and they have the proper affiliation and acknowledgement as well. And the quick checklist before submission is they have to check, like in the journal, which specific journal they are picking and which specific section they are checking. For example, if the paper is for special issue, then they have to pick the special issue for that. So does your paper adhere to the journal guidelines? You have to see that if your paper is following the journal guidelines, because every journal have different guidelines, as I already mentioned. Some journal will ask you maybe 200 words abstract, 3,000 total words, maybe 35 references, something like that. And also, is the correct number of copies supplied? Means is the original updated version you are submitting the draft? Because sometimes when you have saved the different drafts, maybe some drafts are overlap or maybe the incorrect. Because once you submit it, then it's hard for you to change. So before that, you should make sure that you are picking the correct files. Is your numbers are correct, the table figures are correct, and your word limitation is meeting. Your references are complete, you are using the international standards, and you already check the spellings and author spellings as well. And then also the author contributions, who should be first, second, and third. Based on that, the contribution, for example, someone is helped to design the study, and someone helped you to writing the draft, and someone helped to do the other processes and stuff. When you are submitting the paper, you also have to keep in mind that you need to write a cover letter, because editors also read the cover letter, and the cover letter provides a, when you are applying for a job application or any student application, you need to write a cover letter too. So for submitting paper, you also need a cover letter too. So the cover letter is very important. And sometimes the cover letter provided by authors is like this, and just one line or two lines. But this is not a good practice, because the cover letter should address to editor personally. It seems like you are really interested in that journal, so you know about the journal. Also mention about your manuscript title, your publication type, a brief background about your study, explain the importance of your research findings, and also provide the corresponding author details clearly. So the cover letter should have like editor's name or address to the journal. First sentence, provide title, author, list of journal name, and give the background to your research, what was done, what was found, the significance of your research, interest to journal readers, confirm the originality of the submission, confirm that there is no competing financial interest, and corresponding address too. This is one example of the cover letter. So you can see here that from and all the detail of the corresponding author, right? Then there's a paper title, then to editor-in-chief, and then the journal name, and then it shows the first paragraph, second paragraph, and third paragraph. So first paragraph you can see here is focusing on more, the background and research of the findings, right? And then the second paragraph is focusing on what was done and what was found. So that will interest to journal readers. And the third paragraph shows that you conform to the journal requirements. You already follow the journal requirements. So when the editor will read this cover letter, they will understand that, oh, you have put the effort and you follow all these guidelines properly. So who are the experts? When you're recommending a reviewers, you always have to keep in mind that you recommend sometimes the reviewers who are experts, the whole, in your field. And also you have to keep in mind that reviewers are the one who read your paper in depth, more in detail. You also need to know your competitors and also provide a reason for recommending excluding a reviewer, and editors have the final decision on the reviewer choice. So it does not mean that the editor provided comment is just the final comments. The editor double check the reviewer comments and then make the final decision on that actually. So the next section is about what is the review process? How do you see the process work? So submission is not a black hole. So for example, if you submit a paper as an author, you can see here from the start button, you submit a paper, the paper goes to editor, and the editor will check, the editorial system will check the basic requirements of the journal. If they think that the paper followed the journal guidelines, then editor is happy with the topic, they like the title and abstract, another paper, then they will assign the reviewers, and then the review, it will go to the reviewers. But if they are not happy with that, they will just reject from that directly. And when this reject, it will go to the author back. But if it's assigned to reviewers, then reviewer will send back to comments to editor, then editor will reevaluate and see that, and then they will send back to author for, if the editor think that the paper can be improved, then they can give an opportunity for authors to revise and submit again the paper. So people usually say that reviewers process is very, very difficult. If you pass that process, means your paper is going to get published. And it's exciting. The reviewer mind is so, is far more important than exciting the reader's mind, because that you are going to get published. And once it's published, then it's available online for many readers, right? So it's likely that no one will ever read your paper more thoroughly than the reviewers. What's the constraints comes with the reviewers is because sometimes reviewers are very busy. So they review very slowly. It takes a lot of time. Sometimes there are conflicting views. If you invite two reviewers, maybe one will say, oh, except one will be saying that, oh, it's not really good papers, things like that, because different reviewers have different opinions. Sometimes they have personal views as well. And sometimes there could be data manipulation invention as well. But if you get a revision request, it means it's a good news. It means that the editor are happy with your paper and they want to provide you an opportunity to revise and submit again. So you are now in a publishing cycle. So you nearly every published case is revised at least once. So they want you to at least put a maximum effort to revise it. And don't panic. Even if the comments are very, discouraging or sharp, they are not to you personally. They are to the paper, to the research work. So don't take it personal. How you can revise your paper? Acknowledge the editor and set a revision deadline. If you disagree on any comments, you need to explain clearly. So every comments, you don't necessarily mean that you have to agree to that comments. You can, if you feel like, oh no, your research finding is different, you can explain them. You can explain the reason that why you are not agree to that reviewer comments. And consult with colleagues and co-authors. Tend to the points of the question and meet the revision deadline. Attach a covering letter which identifies point by point. Always keep in mind when revising a paper, please put all the points together, and each point you have to address each point individually, not all together. Because if there are 5 questions, 5 points, then you have to address each 5 points separately. So what if your paper is rejected? It means don't give up. Everybody has rejected at least once, so always listen carefully, trying to improve, and also try again to submit to another journal after improving to it, but keep trying. And this is what happened. And there is always positive outcome of rejection. Means you can improve your work, you can have valuable feedback and good experience at how the system usually works. But if you get accepted, then of course congratulations, and following you have to do a lot of other work as well. And once you get accepted, then what you have to do is next to do the proofreading. So after a few days, author receives the paper, and they were asked to check the author's name, the other small minor editing issues, if there are any, if the paper follow the guidelines accordingly. So why I emphasize on author spellings is that because it's very important that you have to make sure author spellings are correct. Once the paper is published, then you cannot change the spellings. Then you have to request for another publication of the only for the name change correction, which is very difficult for the journals. Then section 5 is why and how the promotion of your paper is important. Because once you publish, then you want to promote your paper. And why you want to promote your paper? Because you want to support educators, train globally. You want to raise the profile. And also you want to attract collaborators and funding, and you want to create new opportunities in consulting media. And how you can do that is you can use social media because free, Facebook, Twitter, or you can use your network, share your paper among your other people through email and other links, and contact the authors in the reference list. Or you can use some other media skills to share, like people like to share papers on different social medias as well. And ask the publisher to provide you with the leaflets as well, because journals also publish a leaflet which has the paper, so you can share that with your friends too. So this was about all the how to publish the papers into journal, and this is about the journal. We are having the special issue going on as well. You can see here the Advancing People-Centered Digital Literacy and Innovation is in the final stages as well, but we are still taking other papers too. So you feel free to submit the papers, if not to special issue, just as a regular as well. So you are encouraged to do that, and we really would appreciate your contribution, and will help to expedite the process to fast process the papers as well. And over time to first decision is only 0.5 weeks. You can see that it's very fast decision as well. So it won't take long as well to understand that how long it is going to take to. Thank you for this opportunity, and I'm happy to take the questions on that.
Okay, thank you very much for your interesting lecture, Professor Usman, and very well, student. Now we come to the question and answer session. Please open your camera and open the microphone. You can ask to Professor Usman directly. Hello, student. Is there any question? Or the question starts from me, Professor?
Sure.
Sometimes when the student think that their journal will be rejected, after that makes them worry. And then what should they prepare to start writing at the beginning? Because student is new researcher, right?
Right. It's a very good question. Because when students get rejected, they feel very disheartened, and they feel like, oh, I put a lot of effort in that particular research, and I just got rejected. Means if I got rejected now, I maybe get rejected many times later too. And so what's the purpose of doing? But actually, it's not true. Sometimes if you get rejected, it's not because of your paper is not good enough. It's sometimes because there is not enough. The journals also have some space capacity to take on the papers. They cannot review all the submissions as well, because they also have to pick some number of papers from that particular submissions as well. So if someone got rejected, even myself, I shared that, I got rejected many times too. I get published, but I also get rejected from many times, same paper. And my paper was very good, and everybody's like, why you got rejected? Because sometimes, the journals just don't feel like this particular topic is, interest compared to the other one. So you have to keep trying. If you get rejected, you can try to find another journal. And then if you get rejected, then you try to find another journal. But you will definitely end up getting published that particular paper. So it does not mean that if you get rejected from one journal, you are going to reject from all. It's not like that. Maybe sometime you get an opportunity and it's better that you get published into the another journal. Maybe they have more audience, more people, to read into that too. So in short, you should not dishearten if you get rejected, because even the big professor, otherwise, every professor who is doing the research, if they publish, they just expect that, oh, it's going to be published. It's not like that. So there's a big competition. So whenever someone is submitting a paper, they have to have patience. If the papers get rejected with the feedback, they have to take it as a positive to improve their paper and then submit to the another journal. Or sometimes it happens is the particular journal, if they rejected the paper, they maybe there are very minor comments and you feel like, oh, these comments I can still improve. So then you can ask the journal editor, you can submit a rebuttal request and asking that, oh, these comments we think we can able to address the reviewer comments. Can we resubmit that paper to your journal? And if editor say, yes, we can reevaluate, then you can able to do that too. So don't ever get disheartened and try your best, and always try from the small problem, from the small particular problem, and make it very robust methodology and work with some experienced people to get some more insight and feedback to help to improve that particular paper so you can able to publish into the good journal.
Okay. So the key is try and always try to fix the review from the reviewer. The next question from Sylvianti, from our student. They are from epidemiology department. She is from epidemiology department, and the question is, what is your view on the manipulation of data or making up the data in research for the purpose of intervention in an urgent health problem in the community and requires immediate treatment? Is it allowed?
Yeah, it's a very good question again, because in some countries where people don't understand the nature of impact for the falsification of the data, where they think that if we make a data a little bit more significant, they'll help us to publish, but they don't understand that if they will publish does not mean that it's a real findings, because people will trust on the published data, but they don't understand that if that the information provided, the publication is showing the real or true results from the bottom. So always try to be careful. Never ever try to manipulate the information or data. Whatever the results, sometimes the results are not significant, not positive, not negative. It's okay. You can just say, oh, there is no impact on that. For example, if we use particular intervention in public health, and if we feel like, oh, this intervention is not helping to improve the health outcomes, neither it's reversing, it's the same. So maybe that intervention is not helpful at all. It's neither helping to increase or decrease any impact of that intervention. So that's why I was saying most of the papers are published from the high income countries or some very specific countries, where the reason is because there's a very robust research centers, and their research centers control this kind of the falsification issue. So because they take this all responsibility. But in some regions there is no robust kind of research centers, so they cannot control the quality of the data information. So that's why there's a problem of less publication from that particular regions, because the editors, they don't know whether they should be trust on that information or not. So that is the one of the thing. That's why if some research funding is from particular research center from other country, but the research is done in the developing country, you can see that they will publish that paper is because they feel like, oh, the funding is from the US or other country, and those research centers are recognized research centers, so we can trust on that particular, even the research study is done in the developing countries. So this issue is very important, and we have to address this. And going forward, we have to work carefully that how we can able to trust on the information and we can able to publish that particular information. So it's a big ethical concern going forward.
Okay. The next question from Anissa. She is sorry from Anissa Siva. She is given the opportunity by the department to manage special journal for students as a editor. So what should be done so that journal publication can be indexed by Scopus?
Okay.
Because she is an editor.
Oh, she's an editor. Okay.
Yeah.
So I think the student is a good opportunity for students to learn, because when I was part of the journal, I also started when I was PhD student, I was assisting from the basic things. So this is how you learn, and then you become, editor. So it's a good thing to start with experience. So what thing you can do is you can start from, reviewing the papers first to see that if the paper is well structured, the methodology is robust, the authors follow the journal guidelines or not. You can invite the potential reviewers for the paper. You can see that who are the potential reviewers. You can check the paper did not self-cite it too much. You can invite the reviewers which are not biased, means the other country, not from same country, and sometimes not the friends. And also you can also maintain to see that if the paper is citing the updated literature, people will read it, and is it getting a good enough promotion from the social media? People are aware of what is published in there. You can invite some high profile researchers to publish in your journal, so your journal will get a little bit more and more and more the visibility among the different people, because they want to read sometimes particular papers because they follow the people. And then wherever those people publish the paper, then they will follow those particular researchers because they are well known in their field. So this is how you can start with learning. So you will understand that what are the impacts. And when you have some research going on, then you can see that the citation impact will automatically also impact and increase as well, because this is how it works together too. Because more people will read, more people would like to cite that papers, and then that's how the impact factor will increase too, because then people will cite, the more citation they will do, the more impact factor will be going up.
Okay.
So as a student, it's good opportunity, and you should be actively participating in that particular papers or in research activities.
Okay, got it. Is there any question, student? You can open your mic. Professor, it is my question regarding the authorship issue. How to determine the order of the authors in the paper with that we submit? Who will be the first? Who will be the second, or the corresponding, and so on?
No, it's a very good point. Let's say when we start work in a group, 5 or 10 people, so we come up with the idea. Whoever come with the idea, whose idea, who is doing the maximum work, start with. So, and of course we understand that one person cannot do everything, right? But there is a one idea, who has the main idea that is the leading their research, right? So who will be the first one, right? And then contributing other, for example, somebody's helping them to run the data, right? Somebody's helping them to write some part of the paper. Someone is helping them to provide the funding for the research, right? So based on that, you have to evaluate the contribution and then make them the credits and put them in the authorship. Because the one who leads or who initiates the idea, of course, definitely deserves to be the first one, right? Whoever is taking the responsibility of the whole work, overall work in the research or providing a funding, mostly comes with the corresponding author, because that's how they usually do that in based on the experience. So for example, if there's a student and there's a professor, for example, a PhD student professor. So what happened is the PhD student is always first because they are doing their research and writing and doing everything. And the corresponding author is a professor because they're trying to support and taking responsibility and guiding and advising throughout the whole process. So in the middle, those people who help you in the data analysis, maybe your team member, some lab mates with experiments, some editing, some other kind of things. So you can evaluate based on that and put them in a contribution too.
Okay, so the senior professor is not always in the first author, right?
In some countries maybe, but in the research ethics, it's not that, because if the senior research professor have the idea, if the senior research professor has the idea and they give their idea to the student, and the senior professor research has the started that initiative, the project, and tell the student, then of course the senior professor will be the first author. But if the idea is from the someone else and he or she is having started the project or idea and the professor is guiding them through that, then of course that particular student or whoever the person has to be the first. That's how the contribution is. So what I'm trying to say here is that whoever comes up with the main idea is the one who leads that. For example, sometimes the professor gives the idea to the students and they say, oh, you can do this topic or you can do this topic, because student doesn't have any ideas what they want to do. So I think in that case, of course, the professor who is giving idea, because he already have the idea in the mind and everything, in providing guidance to the students, deserves to be the the leading author too. So it's a like a based on the contribution and stuff too, because of course professor won't do everything, but they are giving you an ideas and advices and suggestions throughout, so they will be supporting you throughout the process too. But if someone is coming up with their own idea and they are trying to have the advices later on after at some stage, then of course the whoever comes up with the main lead of the research will be the main lead author as well.
Okay, what about if I write the paper and then I then submit the paper in the next year, but the topic is related similar? So is it possible to about the auto plagiarism, something like that? Because I plagiate with the previous research before.
Sorry if I understand correctly. You mean if you have the one paper before,
yeah,
last year, and you published that?
No, different paper, but the topic is a little bit same.
A little bit same is okay. Sometimes what happened is the one big project of 5 years have 5 papers maybe. Because the project is same, but you are trying to do small different things. For example, you are checking one thing and then checking second thing and third thing and fourth thing, right?
Yeah.
So it's okay to have the same project but different publication, but it's not okay to have the exact same thing 2 times there, right? Because if you have used the exact same thing published last year and you are trying to do the same, then it's not. But if you're trying to do something different but it's under the same project, then it's okay. And you can able to cite the previous research and say that, oh, this is the extended version of the previous research, and we are looking into this particular thing in this research. So that's okay. And many people do that, because some research projects are for 10 years, for 20 years. For example, some clinical trials are for 20-year study. So they keep publishing something different related to that, right? Focusing on different things, because it's a big project. So they cannot just rely on one research overall in that project too. So they need to have a multiple research within that particular project.
Okay.
Yeah, so it should be fine. Yeah.
Student, is there any question? Because in 1 year from now, you have to publish the paper or you will write the thesis. Yeah? Is there any question from you? Okay, Putri Royan, raise hand. Okay, please open the microphone.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Putri and I'm from Universitas Negeri Semarang. I'm majoring in epidemiology, and firstly I would like to appreciate Mr. for the lecture. That was very interesting and very useful lecture. And my question is, I'm not quite sure if submitting a paper to a journal publisher is free, and I'm gonna ask about how much it costs to submit a paper in a journal publisher, especially if the publisher is a really big publisher. And is there any fee that we need to prepare to pay?
Or maybe you get the free fee, yeah?
Yeah, very good question, Putri. You know, of course there are journals which there are different kind of journals. So there's one type of journals which are totally free. There are one type of journals where you have to pay the fee. So the journals which you have to pay the fee is called open access journal. So when you go to the journal website, you can see there they mention their fee, or they mention, oh, it's an optional open access. If they say optional, means then it's up to you. You want to pay if you want your paper. Open access means they will immediately available your full paper out. So the good thing is from low middle income countries, there is a discount, special discount. And also sometimes even you are from the normal countries, if you don't have the research funding and your research is already accepted, you can write to editor and say that, oh, you don't have the funding for this particular research paper to publish, to pay the fee. You're still a student or you are the new professor. So can you please waive my fee? And most of the time they can waive the fee, the publisher, because they have this right to do that too. So first thing is you submit paper, your paper is under review and your paper is accepted. Once it's accepted, then you can write them to email. And most of the journals, they do that too. They can waive the fee. And in some countries, they already have some discount. So for example, in some countries, they say, oh, it comes in under particular category under the WHO or World Bank. So they will automatically discount the fee for that one too. And I totally understand that some of the countries, they have the funding issues because we don't have the research funding or publication fees for that. And they don't really encourage that because it's very expensive journals, right? So where you can write to editor and request for the waiver, and then the publisher can waive for that research funding. But this one cannot be done before paper accepted, because your paper have to be accepted. Otherwise, no use to ask before, and then your paper is not getting anywhere too.
Okay. Regarding the Putri's question, is it possible if we propose email to the publisher, we get some discount because we are from developing countries, something like this? Because our student is not only bachelor and they have to submit to the index journal.
Yes, it's possible. So for example, before submitting a paper, if you see that journal is asking you to must pay, to agree to pay, so you can write an email to the editor and say that, oh, you are from this particular country, you don't have the funding. Can you allow us to submit the paper, and if it gets accepted and we are not able to pay, and you can waive us the fee or give a concession. So they usually do that. So there's no problem and no harm to ask.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And sometime on the journal website is mentioned clearly their fees as well.
Putri, is there any further discussion from you?
Thank you for the answer, sir.
Okay. Is there any question from other student? Because our issue is not only writing the beginning to write the topic, the paper, but also issue about the funding, how to pay the fee of the paper publication.
I think it's a very good question. And a lot of opportunities for young researchers and any other researchers from developing countries. So what I would encourage is to have the good research, at least to prepare your good paper and submit and ask the editor to waive the fees. And they will definitely do that. Yeah. Yeah. And CMPB is one of the update journal you can submit to, and I can ask the publisher, to recommend those papers. We just started the fees this year, last month, half 50%, but we can still waive if there's any request comes with the paper and the paper is potential, and then we say, oh yeah, this is good paper, so let's give a credit to the authors.
Okay. I have ever heard from the professor in Indonesia, if we one of the success key to publish the paper in the journal is refer the citation or the references from that journal, the paper from the journal. Is it true?
I think it's case by case, not true. The reason is, but of course the journal likes a little bit, at least because they will think that there is some work the work you are doing is relevant to the work they published already. That's why you're citing, because otherwise you cannot find any reference if they did not cite anything related to if they didn't do anything related to your research. So what happened is, sometimes it's good. Of course, everybody likes a little bit that you can refer one or two study from their journal, because then you're acknowledging that you read that journal too, and your paper falls within that scope of the journal too. But not too much, like not all the 10 references from their journal. One or two is okay. And so it's not 100% true. I think maybe it's case by case. But most of the time, the paper has to be independent, standalone, and within the scope of the journal, and robust model and truth values. Then people like to encourage and to submit and to publish there too.
Okay. Last session, is there any question from student? Hello, student. If there is no question again, I think it is the end of our session, Professor. And I would like to say thank you again for the interesting lecture. And before we close this session, you can take picture together with the student.
That's great.
Yeah. Hello, student. Please open the camera. We can take picture together with Professor Usman. Okay, from screen number 1, I count 3 and 2, 1. Screen number 2. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Professor Usman, for your time and your lecture giving to us now. And I hope in the future we can make a collaboration of the research or we can invite you to go to Semarang.
Thank you, Professor Lukman, and thank you all the nice students as well. And please feel free if there's any question or any paper you would like to submit within the scope of CMPB update as well. And thank you again for providing this opportunity, and we'll stay in touch. Definitely, we'll find some opportunities also to do some other collaborations as well.
Okay. And the last one is, would you please send the material to me in email? It's okay.
Yes, I will just send you the slides.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Professor. Goodbye. Assalamualaikum.
Bye, everyone. Waalaikumsalam.
And to all students, I will give you the. Sorry, wait. The information of the e-certificate issuance. You can click this s.id/ph2022-2. This form, this link is content of your attendance and for your certificate issuance. Please write your email address correctly, and the e-certificate will be sent to your email address. Make sure that your email is correct, because in the first or in the series 1, there are four student that write the email incorrectly. The link is active for only 60 minutes after this guest lecture is over. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for our colleague from Lambung Mangkurat University, Mr. Dian Rosadi, the Dean of Public Health, and also my colleague, Ibu Rita Dian Pratiwi from Gajah Mada University. Thank you, and I will close this session. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Terima kasih Pak Lukman, Bu Rita, dan Pak Mahaluli. Tadi malam